Part 99. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 990. Latest website. Hainan is the earliest real estate experiment site in China and the birthplace of the first batch of real estate speculators in the country. Basically, all real estate tycoons in the following decades participated in this wave of speculation, which made countless people rich overnight. In 1992, the average price here was 8,511 square meters, and it would take an ordinary person 2 years to afford 1 square meter without eating or drinking. It was not until 1994 that the bubble here was burst, leaving a lot of unfinished buildings. The arrival of real estate speculators from across the country has also brought short-term economic prosperity to Hainan, and GDP has skyrocketed in a few years. In the evening, the car had stopped at the door of the villa. Lu Feng drove 2 convertible sports cars and sped away along the seaside. The car stopped downstairs at the Seaview Hotel. Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiaoyan both put on long skirts, looking particularly attractive. The private room on the 3rd floor is quite magnificently decorated. The open balcony faces the sea, and the sea breeze is indescribably comfortable. In addition to the 2 donkeys and colts, there is also a man in his 30s, wearing a very expensive suit. But the temperament about him is carefree. He became rich too quickly, and his temperament has not yet caught up. The waiter opened the private room door, walked in and said, "Mr. Lu, your distinguished guest has arrived." "Welcome, welcome." Donkey Jew stood up with a smile on his face. When he saw Zhang Fengxia walking in, his eyes were shining, and the corners of his mouth almost burst into laughter. He also saw Zhang Xiaoyan following behind, and he became even happier until Lu Feng led the way. As Duo walked in, his smile dropped and he asked, "Who is this?" "This is my friend," Zhang Fengxia smiled and said, "I told you to bring 2 friends over." Donkey Jew didn't know what to say and introduced to him, "This is Mr. Wang, the chairman of Tianyuan Real Estate. I met 2 beauties through my friend Shanghai last time. I was very happy. Now that I'm in Sanya, I can't help but be a landlord. Sit down quickly." Everyone sat down. Lu Feng sat in the middle, with Zhang Xiaoyan on the left and Zhang Fengxia on the right. Duo sat next to Zhang Xiaoyan and ordered a lot of dishes and 2 bottles of red wine. The 2 donkeys looked at Lu Feng from time to time, secretly guessing that Lu Feng might be pursuing one of the 2. "Which unit does this brother work in?" Donkey asked calmly. "I'll start my own company," Lu Feng answered truthfully. He had no intention of going around with the other party. He was already tired of this kind of pretentious game. "Are you opening a company? Is it also engaged in daily chemicals?" asked Mr. Wang next to him. "It's not about daily chemicals, it's about electronics." "Have you heard of Jiafeng Electronics?" Lu Feng asked. The 2 of them shook their heads, not knowing much about this business. Luju unbuttoned a button on his suit and said, "It's really not possible to open a factory. Let me tell you, after this new year, I will be 28, but what? My assets have exceeded 50 million. A few years ago, I was still poor. I told others at that time that I will not allow others to look down on me in my life. If you say that Mr. Zhang and Mr. Zhang open a factory, it will really turn into cash. Do I have so many?" "No, no," Zhang Fengxia waved her hands and said, "How can we compare with Mr. Lu? Mr. Lu is so rich, give us some investment." Zhang Xiaoyan heard that Zhang Fengxia was going to tease him, so she said, "Yes, help us. Besides, our daily chemical factory is doing well. If you invest 20 to 30 million, we will open another factory." Donkey Jew didn't expect that these 2 beauties would open their mouths and let them invest, and said, "I still invest in real estate. The real estate here was so good the year before last. I signed the house purchase contract on the 5th floor. I took the elevator to the 2nd floor and signed it. The house sales contract will make you millions directly. That, Fengxia, if you say you want to follow me, I might be able to help you. I'm not good at it. I can't do real estate, so I can just sit here and brag with the two bosses, Zhang Fengxia joked. Look at you, you still can't trust me. Dunju lit a cigarette and said, I know a lot about high-end real estate, and I also know many powerful people. With our relationship, there are many. I can't guarantee that within 3 years, it will be no problem for you to earn 20 million per year. Zhang Xiaoyan was almost going crazy at home during this period. When she saw Donkey Ju constantly drawing cakes, she said, then you can't do it either. This guy, if you follow me, you'll earn at least 50 million a year. While Lu Feng was eating, Zhang Xiaoyan suddenly patted him on the shoulder, raised her head and looked at Donkey Ju with a smile. The two of them had nothing to do at home, chatting with others, and even involved themselves. 50 million a year, Mr. Wang sneered and obviously didn't believe it, and said, how can you make money doing electronics? Let me tell you, it's better to do real estate. The state supports this. Food, clothing, housing, and transportation. This house is definitely the most expensive. The construction cost is not high, it's a huge profit. You too, don't let others fool you. I'm not cheating. Zhang Fengxia turned her head and whispered, don't just eat, show your ability and let them invest in the electronics industry. What a show. I'm obviously here for you too. I've been talking about it all night. Isn't it because I want you to hang out with them and then slowly manipulate you? Lu Feng glanced at her and whispered, these two people are not simple, they also want money and people. Sister Fengxia, Yan'er, don't look at my low education. I have seen the world. I have inspected foreign real estate markets. In the next few decades, real estate will be the main growth point. Look at the houses abroad. What's the price? You're not in this industry, so you don't know how good I am. Erluja took a puff of cigarette and said, I'm telling you this, those in the industry who know me well, don't know how many young and beautiful girls are chasing me. I don't even bother to take a look. Why? I'm a gentleman. That's right, the colt. Before Mr. Wang could finish his words, he was pushed by the two donkeys and said hurriedly, Mr. Lu is definitely a born aristocrat. I tell you this, if you go to a ballroom to dance and the lights go out, he won't even touch anyone. Thighs, in 2 words, gentlemen. You can see it. Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't help but said, we all have different industries. It's not about the industry, I'm telling you, Mr. Wang said, moving a stool closer to Zhang Xiaoyan, looking a bit wretched. Zhang Xiaoyan frowned a little and moved to the side. Seeing this, Lu Feng raised his eyebrows slightly and said, stop talking, let me tell you. I think you two are good. Let me talk to you two about something. The real estate industry is really not good. Why not? Economically. If you don't go, people will have no money and who will buy a house? Let me tell you, which industry will make the most money in the future. Which industry is it? Do you know? Mr. Wang looked at Lu Feng and said, have you finished eating? If you have anything to do after eating, go and get busy. I'm not busy. I really think you two are good. You are such good young men. Let's do one first. Lu Feng picked up the red wine glass, clinked it with the two of them, and then drank it down. In our country, no matter from the perspective of GDP data, per capita disposable income, or industrial distribution, it is very difficult to make domestic money. Lu Feng said to the two of them, so whose money is it? It must be the money of foreigners. Foreigners, if you are rich, if you go abroad and earn $1 million, and you can exchange it for RMB when you return home, it will be multiplied several times. We don't understand foreign money either, Donkey Ju said timidly, how can you earn money in foreign countries? You too, you just think that foreigners are too smart. Let me tell you, Those foreign devils are very stupid. How old is our country? 5,000 years. They are really not good at playing with our brains. Don't tell me. In addition, foreign potato chips are just fried potato chips. A pack costs $2 or $3, and the domestic cost is at most 50 cents. Tell me, what a huge profit. Lu Feng added a few English words in his words and said, my overseas classmates are making crazy money by doing this. Luju had indeed heard about potato chips being eaten abroad. After thinking about it, he seemed to be making money, and said, we don't understand it abroad either. Besides, is the market that big? The market needs to be investigated. Zhang Fengxia wanted to add a word. Lu Feng interrupted directly, what are you investigating? The shortage of potatoes abroad is crazy. Let me tell you too, those people don't have any cultural background, they only know how to eat potatoes. They also do this over there, you can pull it. The potatoes are gone, contact those people and buy them directly for you, you will make a lot of money. Luju and Mr. Wang have never been abroad. People who have never been abroad either have too high expectations of foreign countries and have low self-esteem, or they completely look down on them and think of them as barbarians, which is a serious polarization. Last year I was in New York, the United States, a big international city, and a rich man invited me to dinner. What do you think they invited me to eat? Baked potatoes, barbecue, and the guy stuffed it into his mouth when he ate it. I was dumbfounded. They were in a certain place. Some fields are really strong, and we have to learn from them, but not all fields are strong. One is a potato, and the other is electronics, and they are short of all kinds of basic things, diodes, and so on. Mr. Wang couldn't help but ask, they are so technologically advanced, but they still can't make basic products. There must be a shortage. How high are people's wages in the United States? Let me tell you, a dishwasher over there costs $10 an hour. If you convert it into RMB, that's less than $100 an hour. They do high-end work, so the profits are quite good. This is what I do, if you invest 50 million, you can get your money back in the same month. Lu Feng said matter-of-factly, if you two want to come back to real estate later, there is no need to delay. Luju and Mr. Wang were tempted. In their minds, foreign money was like waste paper. After earning a few million, they could exchange it for tens of millions. There is a threshold for this industry, the two donkeys wondered. I'm telling you this, brother. I fell in love with you today, Lu Feng said to him in an old-fashioned way. I know a boss who is a one-stop shop. He teaches, knows, and distributes, but this business is hugely profitable. It's okay, I won't let you play with me. Brother, do you think I have this chance? The second donkey colt climbed up along the pole. Oh, you have to move around in this. I don't dare to guarantee it for you. It's also for the sake of these two old girls. It's fate that we sit at the same table, Lu Feng said while lighting a cigarette. Luju and Mr. Wang have been in the society for many years, so they are quite familiar with this kind of worldliness. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 991. Latest website. We were chatting back and forth at the dinner table. Lu Feng didn't say how much money he had or how powerful he was. His knowledge of overseas markets alone was enough to keep the two people talking. Zhang Fengxia sat aside and listened to Lu Feng's talk. Sometimes she couldn't help but want to laugh. Maybe this is why people like to socialize. At least during this meal, everyone seemed very happy and laughed constantly. The four of us can't have much fun staying in the house. It's so much fun to go out to have a meal and chat with someone for a while. It's also a kind of fun. Walking out of the hotel, Donkey Ju still seemed to be interested in Zhang Fengxia. Lu Feng put his arm around his shoulders and whispered, "Brother, don't be so worthless. What age are you in, and you are still playing with domestic products. Now you should be find ways to make money, and it's exciting to do it abroad. Brother Lou, don't worry. I will definitely do my job well. If I make money, I will never treat you badly. Donkey Jew, should go and ask around. He is the most loyal person, Donkey Jew said slightly drunkenly. Brother, please show me the way. Brother, I am extremely grateful. It's all a small problem. As for me, I'm sending Buddha to the West, making electronic diodes or something. When the time comes, you go to a subsidiary of GFN Electronics and mention my name. The lowest price is just 2 words, pure profit. Lu Feng took out a stack of business cards from his pocket, including a business card for the person in charge of the production department of a subordinate company, handed it over and said, "Send me my name." "No problem, brother, just walk slowly." Lu Feng waved his hands and got into the car. He went to a subsidiary company to mention Lu Feng's name to set up a factory. The purchase price was definitely high. GFN Electronics now not only exports various accessories and products, but also helps people start their own businesses with one-stop services, doing various businesses. Is quite skilled. With the sea breeze blowing on his cheeks, Lu Feng lit a cigarette and looked at the dark sea. To his left was the endless sea, and to his right was the bustling night scene. Groups of children setting off firecrackers could be seen on both sides of the road. In the distance, fireworks also bloomed in the sky. Just tease him, you don't like his little money. Why are you so vigorous? Are you angry? Zhang Fengxia drove the car, turned her head and glanced at Lu Feng and said, "Because he treated me interesting." Zhang Fengxia had a teasing look on her face, as if she had won some kind of victory. Seeing how happy she was, Lu Feng smiled and said nothing. Fireworks exploded one after another in the distant sky, and he just watched quietly. "Why don't you say anything? Are you afraid that Sister Xiao Yan will be taken away?" Zhang Fengxia asked again. "I'm not afraid of anyone being taken away, I'm just afraid of being alone. It's New Year's Day soon, and it's great to have you by my side." Lu Feng leaned on the chair and looked a little emotional, and said, "I used to think wrongly, if you have money, you can be happy and do whatever you want. When I got rich, I realized that when money can't do anything, it's really hopeless." In his last life, Lu Feng was busy with work and socializing. He always believed that money could bring the greatest happiness in the world. However, whenever he had free time, he didn't know who to talk to. The emptiness prompted him to he went back to work again. Only now do I understand that money is very important, and intimate people are also very important. A life without lack of money or love is perfect. Why are there so many emotions? Sometimes I feel that you are quite mature and live a day at a time. Be happy, not to mention you are so rich. Zhang Fengxia muttered a few words and said, "The boat will naturally go straight to the bridge. For some things, perhaps maintaining the present is also a solution. People who should leave will always leave. If she doesn't want to leave, she will stay shamelessly." Lu Feng could tell that she thought she was lamenting the relationship between the 3 people, so she said, "If you don't mind, just drive your car. Time flies so fast." Another year has passed. Lu Feng feels that the few years since he came back are like going through decades in his previous life. The difficulties in the first year, the determination to make progress in the second year, until now. He hit a wall. Compared with success in business, it is a mess at home. This situation should be considered the most harmonious state now. Lu Feng had also thought about leaving Zhang Xiaoyan. After all, he stayed in the first place just to hope that this miserable woman would be better. But he found that he left her and returned to the state of his previous life. Every day was about work. It was the first time he met a woman and he could talk to her completely openly. It felt like going home. You will never worry that your family will not want you. Compared with his love in his previous life, and the sense of crisis that he could become a stranger with a message at any time, Zhang Xiaoyan gave him a feeling that no one else could replace. On January 31, 1995, New Year's Eve, the sound of firecrackers continued outside. Duo pulled a dog back from nowhere and sat at the door playing with it. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia were busy with the New Year's Eve dinner, and Lu Feng cleaned up the dining table and placed it. Drinks are served, the TV is on, and before the Spring Festival Gala, there are New Year greeting advertisements from major companies. The days are very simple, but very fulfilling. I go to the kitchen to eat secretly, order food, tease Duo, and tease the dog by the way. As the Spring Festival Gala kicked off and the host said Happy New Year, countless families across the country focused their attention on the television. People who are reunited are almost reunited, and lonely people are especially lonely during this festival. Su Yorong stayed alone in the villa. She was the only one in the spacious and luxurious living room, which seemed empty and empty. The Spring Festival Gala was playing on the big TV, but she felt particularly lonely. Feeling a little irritated, this room was so quiet that she could even hear her own heartbeat. She stood up from the sofa, lit a cigarette, and paced back and forth in the room. The coffee table worth tens of thousands of yuan was placed on. There was an ashtray, already full of cigarette butts. Sometimes, money can't buy everything. She wanted to call home, but there was no phone line in her hometown at all. Standing by the window and looking at the lights of thousands of houses outside, she felt heartbroken at this moment. Su Yorong had many friends, and she knew most of the businesses in Xiangjiang, but at this moment there was no one she could chat with for a while. After much thought, she decided to call Lu Feng. I called the company first, and then got the phone number of Lu Feng's villa in Sanya. The phone is ringing. It's probably for New Year greetings. Duo answers the phone, Zhang Xiaoyan shouted while looking at the TV. Duo ran over and picked up the phone and said, Happy New Year, I'm Duo, who are you? I'm Aunt Su, let your dad answer the phone. Su Yorong's voice came from the other end of the phone. Duo turned around and glanced at Lu Feng. Zhang Xiaoyan asked, Who is it? It's a woman. The person looking for dad said she was Aunt Su. Duo replied. Zhang Xiaoyan's mind immediately flashed back to the time when Su Yorong entered her home. She was so gorgeous and proud back then, like a proud peacock. Lu Feng also told her about Su Yorong intermittently. Lu Feng could tell that Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia seemed a little unhappy, and said to Duo, just say I'm busy and can't do anything about work, so hang up. Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't bear to say, she's celebrating the New Year. She's alone in Xiangjiang with no friends. Maybe she just wants to chat with you for a while. You go and chat for a while. Lu Feng was stunned when he heard her words. He originally thought that Zhang Xiaoyan had been in the business world and was different from before, but he didn't expect that he still had this kind of caring temperament. I'm not here to chat with you. You can recruit a lot of people for me in a few years, Lu Feng sighed. What's there to talk about? That Su Yorong doesn't look like a good person at first glance. I've met her twice and I feel very average about her. It's better to stay away from this kind of person, Zhang Fengxia also said. It's Chinese New Year, the three of us are just chatting, there's just one more person, Zhang Xiaoyan said to Duo, take the phone over and press the speaker phone. Lu Feng leaned on the chair and muttered, you are probably the reincarnation of the Holy Mother. The phone was put on speakerphone, and Zhang Xiaoyan said politely to the phone, have a great New Year. It's you, am I disturbing you? Su Yorong asked. You also know, Zhang Fengxia said from the side, you can't stand alone anymore? You called him during the Chinese New Year. Are you overflowing with thoughts? Su Yorong knew the people around Lu Feng relatively well, so she said, yes, it's too common, isn't it? It's Chinese New Year, there's no need for you to speak so rudely. Even if it's flooded, He can't go, Zhang Fengxia said angrily. That's better than you. You've already burst the dam, so you don't have any moves, Su Yorong replied unceremoniously. You don't have any human words in your mouth, do you? You want to save face? People are celebrating the new year. Pay attention to the occasion, Zhang Fengxia said with an unhappy face. Everyone knows who you are. I have experienced so many men around you. I'm afraid you don't even remember it yourself. Haha, Su Yorong chuckled on the phone, that's tighter than you. Hey, 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 Lu Feng shouted, you can't talk nonsense. Okay, you two, stop arguing, Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't help but said. I'm speaking for you, but you still don't know who she is. Zhang Fengxia was a little unhappy, so she just sat there and stopped talking. Zhang Xiaoyan chatted with Su Yorong. No matter who was in front of her, she could calm down. Zhang Xiaoyan had a gentle heart. Even Su Yorong chatted well with her, talking about the difficulties of being alone in Xiangjiang, a single woman. Outside, this is the time when you are most vulnerable. Along with the Spring Festival Gala, several people were chatting on the phone. Su Yorong on the phone kept sobbing. There was no talk about work tonight, but about personal bitterness. Zhang Xiaoyan's face was full of sadness when she heard it, and she kept sobbing. Of comfort. Lu Feng lay halfly on the sofa and watched the Spring Festival Gala for a while, then took Duo to the beach to set off firecrackers. Year after year, adults have no longer looked forward to the new year and just muddle along. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 992. Latest website. Zhang Xiaoyan's greatest advantage is her tolerance. She is not that sharp and will never be too sharp. Such a person is called a good old person or an honest person. Who wouldn't want to have more contact with such a person? Su Yorong is rich, but her inner world is as empty as an endless black hole. There is a saying that when you are hungry, you know that you are in pain because of hunger. When you are full, the pain ghost appears out of nowhere. On the phone, Su Yorong talked about her these years, crying bitterly as she talked. Lu Feng could feel that she was showing her true feelings at this moment. No one could withstand everything, not even him. Even he knew what would happen in the future. Occasionally, I need to come back to Zhang Xiaoyan to cook and chat. A person's life is not just about money, life needs fireworks and human touch. Zhang Xiaoyan comforted her. Lu Feng was smoking outside the door. The year was over. On the third day of the Lunar New Year, the board of directors approved the change of Lu Feng's position. After the seal, Lu Feng officially changed from CEO and executive president to honorary director. He no longer holds any real power positions and is not responsible for any projects. After it was approved internally by the company, it was announced to the public and randomly found two small newspapers to make the announcement. Originally, I wanted to keep the matter low-key, but I didn't expect that it still caused an uproar in the industry. The first thing CEOs from major companies say to each other when they greet each other is, you know, Lu Feng has been sidelined by capital. The person within GFN Electronics who was most familiar with the industry was probably Zhu Lidong. Huang Hongsheng couldn't understand why Lu Feng was suddenly taken down. He was afraid there were some risks involved. Don't look at how much they hate GFN Electronics on weekdays. Many companies have cooperated with GFN Electronics. Some core parts, GFN Electronics' are much cheaper than imported ones. If something goes wrong, foreign investment will increase prices. The domestic electronics industry is not doing well. After much thought, Huang Hongsheng decided to call Zhu Lidong to check his voice. After the call was connected, Huang Hongsheng said with a smile, Mr. Zhu, have a happy new year. Congratulations on Gao's Hung. Mr. Huang, Zhu Lidong was a little surprised when he heard the voice on the other end of the phone. He reacted and joked, "Your blessing comes a little late, it's already New Year's Eve. Don't be afraid of being late after a good meal. I'll call you to wish you a happy new year. I heard recently that your board of directors is very noisy. When will Mr. Lu come to work?" Huang Hongsheng asked insinuatingly. Zhu Lidong laughed when he heard this and said, "I'm not sure. Xiao Lu's affairs are not my business." Xiao Lu? Oh. Huang Hongsheng hesitated again and asked, "Is there an internal fight? Is he planning to cash out his equity and leave? I'm really not sure about this. I don't have any other intention. I'm just afraid that the price of your circuit boards will rise. If you change the boss, no one will know what his temper will be. Lu Feng is a bit of a mean-mouthed person, but he is still a good person." Huang Hongsheng rarely praised him. Lu Feng said 2 sentences. "Really? Don't worry, the price of accessories will definitely not increase. It's normal for market prices to fluctuate. I have something to do, so I'll hang up now. Have a prosperous new year and make a fortune in the year of the pig," Zhu Lidong said politely. "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Huang Hongsheng sat at home, looking at the relatives who came to pay New Year's greetings, and said, "Look, a company with tens of billions of dollars can just hand it over to others. These days, it's better to give up the company, it's better to have money in your own hands." Fuzhou, a group of companies held a meeting to further block related technology patents and promote national legislation in this area. As long as GFN Electronics has no substantial progress in integrated circuits, they will support such a large investment. Less than a few years. As for the strangulation of overseas markets, Lu Feng will not collide with these people head-on. There is not much they can do with just a few small overseas markets. What's more, Lu Feng will enter the European market next year, and there is a Schroeder Group platform there. These two parties cannot take advantage of each other. Therefore, this year's pursuit is to pursue GFN Electronics in research and development. On the 8th day of the first lunar month, companies began to resume operations one after another, and the Hua Yarn factory also began to resume work. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia needed to go back, and Lu Feng also had to start a new job. After almost a month of vacation, Lu Feng felt like he had regained his energy. The car parked downstairs of the company headquarters and stepped into the gate. Along the way, many people saw Lu Feng whispering quietly about Lu Feng's resignation. A few days ago, the door number of the chairman's office was changed to that of the CEO. Now even the CEO's sign has been removed. Lu Feng arrived at the door and wanted to push the door in. He found that the office door was locked and asked towards the office next to him, "Why is my office door locked?" The office director came out and said hurriedly, "Mr. Lu, the people on the administrative side locked the door because you are no longer there, so according to the procedure, this office will be vacant." "Make it available." Lu Feng frowned a little. He felt that something was not right in the company, especially after the establishment of the board of directors. There was nothing abnormal among the core executives. On the contrary, some of the lower management felt that Lu Feng not good anymore. There are now 1,000 people in the entire group headquarters, and there are many managers at all levels, many of whom are old-timers. They are dismissive of the young founder Lu Feng. On weekdays, they are fine, and they don't have much contact. Occasionally, I go down to take a look. It was also a makeshift reception. Now that I heard that you are dying, isn't this a good opportunity to add insult to injury? What's wrong with me? Lu Feng asked the man in front of him. What's your position? I am the deputy director of the president's office. My daily job is to coordinate some work between the major presidents. You have to ask the administration about this matter. I will help you ask as a person in the president's office. The news is naturally better than what is spread among the following people. You need to be much more informed, knowing that Lu Feng still controls the company. No need, who asked me to lock it? Take me to find it, Lu Feng said, a little annoyed. The man took Lu Feng to the office area of the administrative department on the 6th floor. Most people had already arrived today. Many people were chatting with each other. It was obvious that they missed each other very much after not seeing each other for a while. That's her, the man pointed at a woman in her 30s. Lu, Mr. Lu, the woman stood up and looked at Lu Feng, looking a little panicked. She didn't know what such a big leader wanted to do with her. When the others saw Mr. Lu coming, they also lowered their heads and pretended to be busy with their own affairs. Did you lock my office? Lu Feng asked her. Our manager asked me to lock it. The woman lowered her head and said at a loss. Where's the manager? In office. Lu Feng saw the manager's office not far away, walked over and pushed the door open. There was a man in his 40s sitting inside, smoking a cigarette and looking at a folder in his hand without raising his head. He said, "Why don't you knock on the door when you come in?" Did you ask someone to lock my office? Lu Feng asked him. The manager raised his head and saw that it was Lu Feng. He didn't panic. He sat there and said, I received the procedure from the Human Resources Department and handed it over to us for processing. You no longer hold substantive work in the company, so there is no office. I always follow the process. Not bad. You are very disciplined. The process is whatever you want. No one can fault you. Lu Feng stared at him and asked, if I want to go back to the office today, do I have to pick up a bunch of them? I need to apply for the information back and forth and get it stamped by you. This is not something I am responsible for. If you don't do it anymore, why do you come to the company? The manager leaned on his chair and smoked. You used to be the leader, but now you are not. At most, you can be regarded as a shareholder, and I am also a shareholder. Ah, there's no need to show off to me. I'm busy. Go out and close the door. Tisk, 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 this is really cool after leaving, not to mention that I haven't left yet. It seems that I have offended you somewhere before, and now you do this to me. Get out, didn't you hear me? The manager didn't want to hear anything more from Lu Feng and yelled at him to get out. In his eyes, Lu Feng was nothing now. The little equity he had in his hand was nothing more than, the board of directors is acting wild, and the management has no way to do anything about it. Everyone outside heard their department manager yelling at the president, and their eyes widened in shock. Lu Feng didn't say much, walked out and asked the person in charge of the president's office, is Mr. Wei here today? I saw him this morning, he should be here. Call her over, Lu Feng ordered. A few minutes later, Wei Yandan came over and was dumbfounded after hearing this. She looked at the manager. He was usually a very smart person, so why was he so out of his mind at this time? This should be the fastest time for the HR department to go through the resignation procedures. In less than an hour, the manager had already packed up his things and walked out of the office. Stop looking, this is no longer your office. Go home and continue celebrating the new year. Lu Feng stared at him and said solemnly, no matter how hypocritical the workplace is, you can't fall out so quickly. Be careful when you go to work in the next company. Wei Yandan stood there a little embarrassed. This happened on the first day of the new year, and it would make people laugh if it was spread. She said to Lu Feng, Mr. Lu, this is my management problem. In the future, character will be given priority in job promotions. It's okay. In the workplace, there are always some skinny dogs who bully the weak and fear the strong. As long as the overall situation is good, inform the management to hold a meeting. There will be a new direction in the new year. By the way, help me prepare some red envelopes. Let's all be happy together. Lu Feng looked towards Wei Yandan. Commanded. Then let's set it at 10:30. The conference room over there needs some time. Okay, you can tell someone to do it. After Lu Feng said that, he walked upstairs. When he arrived at the door of the office, the door was already open, and a cleaning lady was cleaning in a hurry. An hour later, the entire headquarters knew that the department manager of the administration department had been fired by Lu Feng. For a moment, everyone was wondering, is Mr. Lu still the boss of the company? Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 993. Latest website. Lu Feng's job change caused many people in the company to spread lies privately, saying that Mr. Lu was no longer the boss. This incident in the morning shocked all the executives. If something like this happened to the department they were in charge of, I'm afraid there's going to be a big problem. Before the meeting, I held a meeting with my subordinates and asked them to hold a meeting with them. If anyone dares to complain to Mr. Lu, he will get out immediately. There is no room for negotiation. Not to mention that Mr. Lu is only an honorary director now. Even tomorrow when I look after the gate at GFN Electronics, everyone must treat me with respect. At 10:30 in the morning, Lu Feng sat in the office and read a lot of information about the world. Kevin still had many connections in the world. He had some industry news in Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Fuzhou. Learned a lot. There was a knock on the office door, and the secretary of the president's office opened the door and said, "Mr. Lu, the conference room is ready and everyone is here." Lu Feng stood up and ordered to the clerk, "The meeting is everyone's meeting, and I will be a part of everyone from now on. Don't wait for everyone to arrive before calling me, as if I have a special status." Ah, the clerk was stunned for a moment, nodded, still a little unsure of what to do, and replied, "I know." In the conference room, more than 30 people were sitting in their seats chatting with each other, nothing more than some kind words for the new year. The person who was standing at the door in charge of the etiquette of the meeting saw Mr. Lu coming and said hurriedly, "Mr. Lu is here." The door opened and Lu Feng stepped in. Everyone stood up and looked towards the door. "Everyone, sit down, you are still not used to it after the company's restructuring, right?" Lu Feng smiled, took 2 steps, stepped forward and said to everyone, "From now on, I will be your colleague, and everyone is on the board of directors. Anyone who works for the company within the framework should just sit down." Some people in the back row had already sat down. When they saw Zhu Lidong, Wei Yandan, Liuqin, and Du Guoying in the front row standing, they hesitated and stood up again. Sit down, Lu Feng raised his hand and pressed down on the people in the front row. As he spoke, Lu Feng sat in the first seat in the front row and said, "It's getting late, let's start soon." Everyone sat down. There was no host in this meeting today. For a moment, he didn't know who should take the stage. Lu Feng glanced at Zhu Lidong and said, "Mr. Zhu, come on stage and speak. You are the rotating president." "Mr. Lu, it's not appropriate." "You can go on stage and tell me what you plan for the new year." Zhu Lidong looked confused. "You go up, otherwise the rotating president will become a showpiece. Go," Lu Feng said to him in a deep voice. Zhu Lidong looked troubled, stood up and walked to the stage tremblingly. Kevin sat next to Lu Cheng and whispered, "Mr. Lu, have you learned it?" "What are you studying?" Liuqin wondered. "You haven't seen Mr. Zhu state. On weekdays, he is the second eldest son in the company, Mr. Lu, the third eldest son, and the fourth eldest son. What about today? It's all knowledge, the knowledge of facing leaders." Du Guoying lowered her head to the left-hand side of Liuqin. The voice said, "You lack these. Why should I learn these things? This year's R/U0026D progress cannot be improved. Even if I learn to be like Zhu Lidong, Mr. Lu can still turn my head off." "Do you believe it?" Liuqin said very openly. Zhu Lidong stood in front of the podium, looking like an ordinary person taking the stage for the first time. His face was full of nervousness, and he spoke into the microphone, "Happy New Year to everyone. It's my first time to stand here. I'm not scared. It's a lie. But, standing here, everyone seems to be different. There was a lot of laughter in the audience, and the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Mr. Liu, I really don't know what to say, Zhu Lidong said. Why don't I talk about the sales department's plans for next year? I guess everyone doesn't want to hear it. It has nothing to do with other departments. I personally feel that the company has changed a lot this year. It will be even more difficult. I also hope that all departments and branches can work together to do a good job. If there are any problems or need cooperation, please communicate more internally. In the new year, the sales department will definitely fully cooperate with everyone's work, and also I hope everyone can cooperate with my work more. Let's just say this, I'm not very good at speaking. Let Mr. Liu say a few words, and everyone applauds. There was applause at the scene. Lu Feng looked towards the first row and asked, does anyone want to go up and talk about their development ideas for the company next year? Speak freely and exchange ideas. No one else came up. Liukan felt that the R/U0026D company had heavy tasks next year and hoped that the departments would not push so hard. As soon as he moved his buttocks to get on stage, he was pushed down by Du Guoying next to him. Mr. Liu, what do you want to do? Du Guoying asked in a low voice. I'll go up and talk about the docking between the R/U0026D company and various departments this year. Go down and talk to Mr. Liu alone, it's not appropriate now, Du Guoying hurriedly persuaded. Yes, it's not the right time to talk now, just sit down, Kevin also advised. Seeing that no one was on stage, Lu Feng stood up and walked towards the stage. He stood in front of the podium without saying a word. He glanced at the audience silently and said, the new year has arrived, and everyone has taken a long break. Rest is to move forward faster. The company is getting bigger and bigger, and now it is no longer my only company. To put it bluntly, like you, I also work for the board of directors. Everyone has equity in their hands. If the company is good, everyone will earn more. This is why I put 30% of the equity into the employee incentive pool at that time. As for me, I am now an honorary director. The board of directors re-employed me, and I am an employee like everyone else. Lu Feng's words at the front were relatively gentle, but when he saw everyone behind him, he suddenly became serious, and said in a deep voice, whether it's an employee or a boss, in the new year, GFN will conquer new mountains, and go out just to fight. In the new year, everyone has new tasks, so take a good look at the money you hold and the responsibilities you bear. Whether you are from GFN or not, even if you go out one day, I hope you will be a well-known figure. This year's goals are very important, and everyone is a little energetic, so I suggest that we all stand up. How about it? Lu Feng's question is more like an order. Everyone present stood up quickly. The domestic market is basically stable. It is nothing more than an incremental market. Mr. Zhu, I hope you can stabilize your position in the domestic market in the new year. If the market fluctuates up and down like last year, don't do it, it's done, and we still have pagers. I hope Mr. Du can do better this year. There is still a lot of room for improvement in terms of market share. The domestic market is growing steadily this year. The price war has been going on so far, and we don't have much energy anymore. Where else can they lower prices? We need to continue to develop small household appliances. Peripheral products are GFN's wings. We don't make money from them, but yes, the VCD market is very stable and we must not relax. Don't loosen the string in your mind. Ask Liukan. Foreign DVD technology has been registered and we are also grabbing related patents. If anyone dares to loosen the string in their mind this year, I will give it to you. Can you believe it if you twist your head off? We are a multinational enterprise. How many people outside are laughing at us, saying that our legs were broken just after we stepped out of the country? Foreign markets are difficult. Kevin can only focus on the markets of neighboring countries. In developed countries, we have no choice. It's a tough nut to crack if you can't get in, and I saw some news today. They just want to bully you and won't let you do it. Want to sell goods abroad? They will sue for infringement, internal pressure, and malicious market competition. They will beat you until you can't stand up. Even so, we will still you have to do it, and you have to do it well. At this critical moment, willpower is very important. You must have the spirit of not being afraid of hardship, not being afraid of death, and not being afraid of blockade. And they are blocking it on a technical level. They are just a ball. Why don't they dare to force themselves in the market? Knock. The Thai market beat them to the point of crying for their father and mother. This year, we will never allow war-weary sentiments within the company. They will say in private that overseas markets are not good or that we steal foreign technology patents. Once we find such a person, we will tell him to get out immediately. The new year is here, it's already 1995. Brothers, we have been established for almost 5 years. What does GFN do? GFN is a diamond, it is the hardest. The overseas market is difficult, no problem, I will come. Domestic. The market focuses on stability, and I will divide the overseas market into 2 parts. Kevin is responsible for developing the markets in neighboring countries. I am going to work on the European market. I want to satisfy the board of directors and write a wonderful note in the annual report. You keep your home, while I go to sweep Europe. There was thunderous applause, and everyone clapped their hands excitedly. As long as this person stands on the stage, as long as he says yes, it will definitely be possible. In the new year, the most important thing is the R/U0026D company. With such a large budget, Mr. Liu, I hope you can spend the money. I don't care how you spend money outside, you must let me see things, otherwise I can't explain it to the board of directors at the end of the year. If the board of directors tells me to get out, then I'll let you get out. Mr. Liu, don't worry, Liukin said with firm eyes. I've said everything I need to say. In the new year, I'll send you a red envelope. Lu Feng took out a stack of red envelopes, looked at Zhu Lidong and the others and said, don't worry, it's not a red envelope this time. Each red envelope costs 3,000 yuan, which is definitely a big red envelope, and the money is recorded in Lu Feng's personal account. Lu Feng left, and after the meeting, Zhu Lidong and others were still curious about how much the R/U0026D company's budget would be this year to allow Liukin to spend such money. Mr. Liu, how much budget does Mr. Liu give you? Zhu Lidong leaned over and asked softly. That's all. Tell me, if you can't use it all for a while, please give it to our marketing department first, and return it to you in a few months. Zhu Lidong started to think about it and said, you are so rich, why don't you support me? Are you borrowing or repaying? How many 100 million is the budget? A few 100 million, Liukin snorted rather arrogantly, a few 100 million, why should I spend the whole night worrying about how to spend it? Zhu Lidong looked at Liukin going away and said to Du Guoying next to him, tisk, 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 look at that face, oh, who can't live a rich life? Only those who can live a poor life are powerful people. Du Guoying looked at Zhu Lidong's envious look and said, Mr. Zhu, what you said makes sense, but I still want to live a wealthy life. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 994. Latest website. Zhu Lidong glanced at Du Guoying. Who doesn't want to live a good life? Isn't this the joy of hardship? He walked forward. The bigger a company is, the easier it is for the top beneficiaries, and they don't even have to worry about it at all in the end. After GFN Electronics established the board of directors, a group of professional managers under it can read the annual report and the company can develop on its own. This means that when a research and development company achieves certain results, even if the company does not have Lu Feng, there will be no change at all. Lu Feng held 2 consecutive days of meetings in the company. He mainly needed to gather a team to open an overseas branch in Europe. He also needed to contact the company registration, customs, and sales companies. For Jiafeng to go to the European market now, it is equivalent to starting from scratch. It is even more difficult to open the market in a short period of time. Just after the 15th day of the first lunar month, a lot of documents were placed on Lu Feng's desk. There was a knock on the office door. Kevin opened the door and walked in. He said to Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, this is Sean. Didn't you say you want to find someone who knows the European market? He has more than 30 years of market experience in various European countries." Lu Feng stood up and looked at the old man with all white hair in front of him. He was wearing a pair of rimless glasses. He was somewhat tall and looked a bit like Steve Jobs. "Hello, welcome." Lu Feng stretched out his hand and shook it. "Sit down quickly." Xiao En muttered a lot and sat down. Lu Feng was a little puzzled and said, "He doesn't know English. He's French. He doesn't speak English, but he speaks German and French." Kevin explained helpfully, "What he means is that he can be your consultant for a year. The development of the company has nothing to do with him. He doesn't want equity or dividends. Performance and bonuses are all messed up, and the wages have to be paid. To be honest, the accounts are settled every month." After hearing this, Lu Feng was stunned for a moment and said, "You can tell he has a lot of experience at first glance. He won't eat any cakes. Ask him how much he wants." The two communicated for a while, and Kevin said, "He said he wants $15,000 a month, and you need to provide him with food and accommodation." 15,000. It's almost 150,000 yuan when converted into RMB. Lu Feng felt a little hurt and frowned. "Can it be cheaper? Tell him that I am great. As long as the European market opens, I will give it to him. Wrap a big red envelope worth $100,000. Sean rolled his eyes when he heard Lu Feng's words. It was obvious that he was no longer interested in the cakes drawn by his boss. What's more, he had retired now and just wanted to make some money to travel. He had no other ideas. Kevin explained the situation and persuaded, "He knows a lot of people in various European countries. Some things need to be handled by others. The price is worth it. How many people like me are there?" Kevin said that he felt aggrieved. He did countless times more work than Sean, and the money was not as good as him. The only good thing was that he had some equity in his hand, and the company made a profit. Then we have to hire a translator. This is also money. "Can you change someone?" Lu Feng asked Kevin. "Is there a more suitable candidate?" Kevin shook his head in embarrassment. "This kind of talent is not a cabbage. You can find one wherever you go." Half an hour later, Lu Feng reluctantly agreed, shook hands with Sean and said, "I hope the cooperation will be pleasant, and I hope you are worthy of such a high salary." Sean looked at Lu Feng and smiled while chatting again. "He said it must make you feel valuable." Kevin said to Lu Feng, "In 3 days, he will wait for you in London." Good. After seeing off Sean, Lu Feng gathered the team of the European branch for a meeting. The preliminary preparations were basically completed. Tomorrow, he sent an advance team to rent an office building and deal with some basic issues. The remaining people will go together in 3 days, and we need to coordinate with the production department, marketing department, and overseas department. The first batch of goods must leave today. The goods will be received within a week of our arrival. If no one goes, the goods will not go." We stared there. Lu Feng looked at the hundreds of people present and said in a deep voice, "You are all the backbone of the group and have very high academic qualifications. This time when Europe opens up the market, you may be away for 6 months or a year. In the future, you may even be stationed overseas. I hope you all be mentally prepared that in the future you will be the management of branches in various European countries, and I hope you will seize the opportunity." Everyone at the scene seemed a little excited. Most of these people graduated from prestigious domestic schools and had absolutely no problem with their English. They joined the talent center just to take this opportunity to go abroad. I didn't expect that their dream would come true so quickly. Although it is not the United States, it is also a developed country. Nation. In the past 2 days, I have made it clear to my family and submitted my passports to the company. I hope you can show your talents by then. Lu Feng glanced at everyone and said. There was a pretty girl standing in front of her. She stared at Lu Feng and said, I promise to complete the mission. This sound was particularly abrupt, and everyone in the audience stared at her. Lu Feng was also attracted to her. The girl was about 1.73 meters tall, with an oval face, fair skin, and watery eyes, as if she could talk. Just do your work seriously, there's no need to say it out loud, Lu Feng said to her and walked out the door. This team has just been formed, and there are mostly boys. The girl Li Ziasi is definitely at the level of a goddess. In just a few days, she has already had more suitors than she can count on one hand, but it's a pity that she can't like any of them. Many people withdrew their eyes from her with a bit of reluctance, and went to prepare for their work. Compared with a beautiful woman, others felt that the European market this time was more important. As long as they could do well, no matter what kind of beauty would not be able to do it in the future. All kinds of work were in full swing. In the evening, Lu Feng called Zhang Xiaoyan and said he would go to her place to see Duo in the evening. I drove to the vegetable market to buy some vegetables and made some dishes when I got home. At around 7 o'clock in the evening, the door was opened. Zhang Xiaoyan was holding a bag in her hand and said, What do you want to do this time? It's nothing, I just have to leave in a few days. It will probably take a long time this time. Lu Feng looked at her and said. As long as you grow up, I'm used to you running around all year round. Isn't this how it goes these days? Where's Duo? Bring her back. Zhang Xiaoyan changed her shoes only to find that Duo hadn't come back. If you can live on campus, live on campus. She also wants to live on campus and has a lot of fun playing with the kids. Lu Feng said to her, hurry up and sit down and eat. Zhang Xiaoyan seemed to feel something, looked at him and said, I have to go to work tomorrow. Feng Xia will come over in a while. You can go back after dinner. Company matters are important. It's okay. What can happen to the company? You think it's a small workshop and everything needs my hand. Let me tell you, if Jiafeng doesn't expand overseas now, I will be fine even if I travel for a year. Lu Feng pushed her down on her seat and said, just the two of us have a meal together. I'll call Feng Xia and ask her to come over and eat together. No, you can invite her alone tomorrow. Lu Feng sat down and lit 2 candles on the table, turned off the lights, and looked at the person opposite him with gentle eyes. There was no need to say anything at this moment. They both knew what he wanted to do. You tell me, when will you be too busy and how much money you earn will be too much? I feel tired now running 2 factories, Zhang Xiaoyan muttered while eating her food. Now that I have money, I miss the old days a little bit. Son, when we make friends, everyone is cold and won't contact us if it's not useful. You have grown up too. If you went back to the past, would you still persevere so hard? Lu Feng stared at her and asked. Zhang Xiaoyan smiled, leaned on the chair and said, I was brainless at that time, but I am so smart now. I am afraid that I will run away the day after I marry you. Isn't that a marriage fraud? Lu Feng laughed and said, hurry up and eat. The two of them were eating and chatting about the changes in the past 6 years, which were simply earth-shaking. Looking back at themselves at that time, they looked as stupid as idiots, and they were filled with emotion. After eating, Zhang Xiaoyan put away the dishes and chopsticks, looked at Lu Feng and said, I can just clean it up myself. You can go back quickly. Okay, by the way, I have a surprise for you. Come here, Lu Feng said to her with a mysterious look on his face. What? A luminous jade pendant. People say that the darker the place, the brighter it is. Let's go and have a look in the bedroom. The living room is too bright. Lu Feng put his hand in his pocket, as if there was something real. Zhang Xiaoyan looked curious. She had never heard of luminous jade. She followed him into the house. Lu Feng stepped back and closed the door. Where's the jade? What does it look like? Sit here and I'll show you. Hey? Hey, hey, why are you taking off your clothes? The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Zhang Xiaoyan said to the phone, Fengxia, have you arrived at the factory? I overslept. You have a meeting first. I'll be there in an hour. Lu Feng yawned and walked out of the bedroom, leaned against the door and looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and said, can't you take a few days off? I'll leave the day after tomorrow. How many days off do you need? I'm afraid I'm going to fall apart. Do you think I'm a living King Kong? Zhang Xiaoyan changed her clothes and said, don't waste your energy, find a suitable one, and get married when it's time. As expected of a person who has finished his work, his words are full of solitude. I will sleep for a while, Lu Feng said and returned to the house. After Zhang Xiaoyan packed up, she poked her head towards the bedroom door and said, don't let Duo sleep in school today. Remember to pick him up. Lu Feng was already snoring so loudly that no one could hear him. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 995. Latest website. Duo had been staying at the school for several days, and the little guy was in a bad mood. After school on the third day, Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan just appeared at the school gate. Is it better to be at school or at home? Lu Feng squatted down and looked at Duo and asked. Duo stared at him with a bad look on his face and said, have you forgotten me? How could it be? This is training your self-reliance. Aren't we here to pick you up? Lu Feng smiled and patted her little head and said, get in the car. After getting in the car, Lu Feng drove and said to Duo in the back seat, Dad is going on a business trip tomorrow. Let's go have a nice meal today. Do you miss Dad? Duo leaned over and looked at Lu Feng seriously and asked, Dad, why do you look so bad? That's not the point. Okay, Lu Feng continued to ask, do you miss Dad? Miss you, Dad, Duo said rather perfunctorily, then looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and said curiously, Mom's skin is so good. Mom is not that tired. Dad is working hard. You should feel more sorry for him, Zhang Xiaoyan explained. Lu Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard Zhang Xiaoyan's explanation and drove the car without saying a word. When we arrived at the restaurant, we ordered a lot of Duo's favorite dishes. After a while, Zhang Fengxia rushed over, sat down, and asked, are you leaving tomorrow? Yeah, let's go to London first tomorrow. Lu Feng called the waiter and took the menu and said, whatever you want to eat, you can order it yourself. I can do it. This trip will take a long time, right? Zhang Fengxia asked. Yes, 3 to 5 months is probably short. Once the market cannot be developed, it will take a year, mainly focusing on the entire European market. Lu Feng was a little worried. In 1 year, from nothing to spreading across the entire European market, everyone who hears this difficulty is probably going to feel numb. While eating and chatting about some work matters, the atmosphere did not seem very relaxed. After eating, Lu Feng said to Zhang Xiaoyan, I will come back as many times as possible if I have time. If everything goes well, I will be busy for at most 2 years. As long as our U0026D once the company gets established, I'll really have a lot of time on my hands. You can be busy with your business, And I'm busy too. Just be busy, and time will pass quickly. Zhang Xiaoyan lowered her head and said, let's pay the bill and go back and have a rest early. After going downstairs, Zhang Xiaoyan drove Duo back. Zhang Fengxia stood on the street. Shenzhen, which had just celebrated the New Year, was still a bit chilly. She looked at Lu Feng and said, are you going to take a taxi back? Yes, what about you? Where do you live now? Lu Feng looked at her and asked. Let's rent a house. Zhang Fengxia stood there for a long time, raising her head to look at Lu Feng from time to time, as if she had something to say. Are the factories good? There aren't many competitors in this area, but it's okay. Zhang Fengxia felt a little cold, hugged her hands together, and muttered in a voice that even mosquitoes couldn't hear, can you hug me? Ah. It's okay, I'll stop in a car and leave. Remember to call Sister Xiaoyan more often, Zhang Fengxia said in a panic. If you want to be cold, put on my coat. Lu Feng took off his coat and put it on her body. A taxi stopped in front of her. No, I'm fine. Zhang Fengxia hurriedly returned the coat, opened the door and got in the car, saying, go back early, bye. The taxi sped away, and Lu Feng stood there with mixed feelings in his heart. There were some things that he couldn't mention, and everything was fine if he left them there, but that throbbing heart always wanted to be touched at some point. The answer is just there, consumed, thinking that there will be an answer after exhaustion. In the taxi, Zhang Fengxia leaned on her seat and burst into tears. She felt particularly sad. In London, as Jiafeng Electronics announced its entry into the European market and was the first to obtain approval from the United Kingdom, it caused quite a shock in the local electronics industry. The fastest growing company in the world in the past 5 years is none other than Jiafeng. Even Lu Feng has many fans abroad and is known as a legend. However, this legendary figure is about to enter Europe. Many people want to see how he can open up a world in the territory of Beko and Hailey. More international companies also want to see how Jiafeng can break through. London, Beko Electronics Group headquarters. At 10 o'clock in the morning, people were coming and going in the office building. In the president's office, a man in his 50s knocked on the door and walked in. Inside was a man of about the same age. My dear President Paul, I have some news for you. The man stood in front of his desk, put the folder on the table and said, want to hear it? If you have this attitude towards work, I think you should take a holiday. Paul raised his head and looked at George and said, what's the matter? Jiafeng is coming, George said casually. Jiafeng? Male or female? Paul asked in confusion. What is he here for? Do we need to receive him? It's an Oriental company, established 5 years ago, with a valuation of tens of billions of dollars. The founder, Lu Feng, will come with his team in a few days to sell their TVs, pagers, and VCDs, George said solemnly. Oh, damn, this is really bad news. 5 years? Tens of billions of dollars. We really did a terrible job. The responsibility lies solely with you as the general manager. Paul looked very unhappy and stood up and said, if we were worth tens of billions of dollars, I wouldn't be here right now, but on my luxury ferry having dinner with a bunch of girls. George knew that his boss had no future, otherwise he would still be doing so poorly in such a good market in Europe for so many years. He didn't expect that he would be so useless. Boss, the point is not the market value of tens of billions, but that he is coming, George said dissatisfied. We are a listed company, you don't want to contact those fund managers all day long to raise the stock price and cut leaks everywhere. We should find a way deal with it, otherwise it won't be long before stockholders who hold shares will scold us on the front page just like scolding fund managers. Okay. What do you think we should do? Paul sat down and stared at George and asked, our market is very strong. Not only do we sell TV sets, but we also have exclusive TV programs. We shouldn't collapse so quickly, right? I also feel that our biggest advantage is not the hardware, but the software and content provision, so I have been thinking about adding late-night programs to our TV for a long time." George smiled mysteriously. "Very good, let the planning department do it and promote this," Paul ordered. The two of them looked at various data of GFN Electronics for a long time, and finally worked out such a plan, and then started a meeting to implement it in preparation for the arrival of GFN Electronics. At the same time, another company, Hiley, also started to make preparations. The only one who looked down upon GFN Electronics was Siemens, the German company with the highest market share. This company was too huge. For a small company like GFN, there is no feeling at all when arriving. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng and his team boarded the plane. Except for a few senior executives from the overseas marketing department, most of them were newcomers brought from the Talent Reserve Center. In order to show equality, they were all in economy class. Fortunately, it was a layover, so it was not particularly tiring. Many people were quite excited to fly for the first time. Lu Feng got on the plane first and sat down. Li Ziasi looked at his ticket and found it. Position, his eyes were already fixed on Lu Feng in front of him. Rich country. Rich country, Li Ziasi stopped a simple and honest man in front of him and asked, "Where are you sitting?" Fu Guo turned around and saw that it was Li Ziasi. He was a little cautious, lowered his head and said, "I am 33B. Li Ziasi looked forward and saw that the first row of the economy class was number 33, and said hurriedly, "Can we change seats? I'm sitting in 57A, by the window, so I can see outside." "Really? Then change it." Li Ziasi put the small suitcase on the luggage rack, glanced at Lu Feng, and said, "Hello, Chairman." Lu Feng raised his head, glanced at her, and asked, "Are you sitting here?" "Yes." "Hurry up and sit down." "Don't call me chairman." "There is no chairman in the company now, only the board of directors," Lu Feng corrected. Li Ziasi nodded and sat down obediently. Next to him, a stout woman in her 30s sat down. When she saw Lu Feng sitting in the first position, she immediately put it away and sat there. "Don't dare to move very much. I'm a little nervous sitting next to you." Li Ziasi looked at Lu Feng and said, "It's mainly because I haven't seen you a few times and I didn't expect you to be so handsome." "That's right, the chairman is so handsome. He's so handsome. I want to look for someone just like you," the woman next to me said excitedly. "Fasten your seatbelt. Your ears will feel a little uncomfortable during takeoff," Lu Feng said to the two of them. Li Ziasi had been looking for a chance to talk, but she didn't know what to say. Lu Feng had been reading a book and could only sit there. As the plane took off, the cabin was full of excitement. It is estimated that 90% of the new employees here are flying for the first time. Lu Feng was not in the mood to read. He didn't know what he would face when he landed in London. Even he was not absolutely sure this time. According to the data, the largest home appliance company in the UK was a company called Beko. As for Siemens, the behemoth will definitely not be able to pry it off in the short term. With a market share of more than 20% in several important European countries, GFN has really emerged from the quagmire, not to mention that it has to face a complex international environment, R/U00260 encirclement and suppression, and board control. Things were too complicated, which made him very upset. He could only do the things in front of him first, look at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window, and stop thinking about it. The entire cabin was very noisy, like a vegetable market. The stewardess was handing out lunch, and Lu Feng was casually chatting with Li Ziasi next to him, saying some clichés. The first batch of people who rushed there have already rented the office area. Since we are opening up the market, it will be very hard in the early stage. Your ability to speak English is the reason why you were selected. I hope you can seize the opportunity this time." Lu Feng looked at the two sides. "Humane. Mr. Lu, don't worry, I will definitely go all out, the chubby woman next to her said happily. Li Ziaxi looked at Lu Feng timidly and said, I will do whatever Mr. Lu asks me to do. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 996. Latest website. Get used to it and do your job well, Lu Feng said politely and started to eat. As the plane landed and arrived at the transit station, he stayed overnight and took off again the next day. When checking into the hotel, Lu Feng suddenly remembered that he needed to find a translator who could speak French, otherwise he would not be able to communicate with Sean. Lu Feng picked up the phone on the table and called, Hello, Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, what are your orders? A man's voice with a rich voice came from the other end of the phone. It's like this. There will be a French consultant over there. He can't speak English. Is there anyone in our team who can speak French? Be a translator, Lu Feng said, go and ask. If not, you will need to hire one. Okay, I'll get back to you in a moment. After speaking, Mr. Lu hung up the phone. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Lu Feng picked it up and said, how's it going? Mr. Lu, there is someone in our team who can speak French, that Li Ziaxi. Did you know? She can speak English and French. I just told her that she will be arranged to be your translator when the time comes, President Lu replied. Oh, okay, Lu Feng was a little stunned. He didn't realize that this Li Ziaxi could also speak French. He really couldn't tell what he looked like. The next day, everyone boarded the other half of the flight directly to London. The recent changes in the board of directors of GFN Electronics have attracted the attention of many overseas companies. It is impossible to hide the fact that Lu Feng led the team to Europe. For companies in Fuzhou and the United States, this is Lu Feng's last stand. If he achieves success in Europe, GFN will be able to get out of the predicament. If the R/U0026D company makes another breakthrough this year, it will mean GFN's full breakthrough. Compared with companies such as Sony and Panasonic, companies in Silicon Valley are more nervous. After more than 10 years of charging in integrated circuits and communications and competing with Japanese companies, they have finally managed to be on par with Fuzhou companies in the international arena. GFN Electronics has been doing their job for 10 years in a few years. What do leaders think of these people? Watanabe has a good relationship with Wall Street and has now become a bridge between Fuzhou Enterprises and Wall Street. After a meeting, everyone felt that a two-pronged approach should be taken, blocking R/U0026D and targeting the European market. It's a pity that neither Fuzhou companies nor American companies have a high share of the European market. Moreover, they are too big and will be easily censored if they make any movement. You must know that the EU was born to deal with them, and they may not dare to. They kicked them out, but they showed no mercy with the hefty fines. Watanabe she received a new task, persuading Wall Street to communicate with Siemens, thereby bringing a disaster to Lu Feng in the European market. At the same time, GFN Electronics' major clubs in the United States were also found out and absorbed. The plans of American college graduates are completely over. Watanabe first called Eisen and then made an appointment with Lambert. In the office, Lambert, who had just returned from vacation, looked at the documents on the table. He had to admit his vision. Lu Feng's ability to withstand suppression was far better than that of ordinary people. He was very good at maneuvering around the international community and was so slippery. People gnashed their teeth. After reading the document, Lambert agreed with Watanabe's idea. The problem was that it was impossible to talk to Siemens about this matter without some blood. This benefit should be paid by Fuzhou's company. Picking up the phone and calling the telephone department, Lambert said into the phone, "Put me through Mr. Watanabe's call." After the call was connected, he called back. Lambert picked up the phone and said with a smile, "Happy New Year, Watanabe-kun." When Watanabe heard Lambert's cordial greeting, he almost smiled. This kind of treatment was not something that ordinary people could get. It represented face, even though he knew in his heart that people needed him now and took advantage of him. Yourself, but the rule of survival on Wall Street is that being used by others proves that you are valuable. Thank you for your greetings and Happy New Year to you. You must have seen the copy conveyed by Eisen. We think it is necessary now what Nabe said on the phone. Currently, globally, in terms of high-end manufacturing, although the competition between the two sides is relatively fierce, the boss and the second child are fighting, and there are too many situations where the third child benefits, so we should avoid worries first, not to mention that GFN is no longer an independent Chinese company, but has Europe behind it. What Nabe Kun, I very much agree with your point of view. Our companies cannot take any action in the European market. It is also a good idea to let Siemens suppress it. However, persuading Siemens may not be done with words. Lambert said quite a bit. Wei said bluntly, I need to promise some benefits. What can you offer? What Nabe didn't dare to make a blind promise. He thought for a while and said, we need to hold a meeting to discuss this. What concessions will Silicon Valley companies make? We also need to have a meeting to communicate in this regard, Lambert replied. Okay, I will reply to you as soon as possible, what Nabe said politely and hung up the phone. Lambert put down the phone. They had no intention of giving any benefits to Siemens. As long as Fuzu's companies made certain concessions, such as market and technology research and development cooperation, it wouldn't take much to deal with GFN Electronics. He will tell Siemens that he will also make certain concessions after the matter is completed. When GFN is hammered down in the European market, what happens next won't matter. Just drag it on. So what if they have complaints? Lu Feng and his team finally landed in London. This ancient modern city was very shocking to everyone who came from China. There were tall buildings and cars everywhere. Many people had secretly vowed to stay. It's here. Several booked buses departed from the airport and were taken directly to the hotel where they were staying. Because there were too many people, this time they booked a mid-range hotel. In the car, Li Ziasi sat next to Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu asked me to be your translator. I'm pretty good at French. Thank you for your hard work. After a while, you have settled in. Remember to follow me, Lu Feng ordered. When they arrived at the hotel, everyone got out of the car. The people in charge who greeted them introduced the situation to Lu Feng. Currently, they have rented a 4-story office building and have connected with 3 distributors. The market research report has also been released, including various advertising channels and product positioning. It is also in full swing. It's just that there are few people and they are too busy. With these people here, the recruitment of grassroots employees below can also be carried out. If it is fast, they should be able to face the market in 2 months. Is Sean here? Lu Feng asked the person in charge. We're here, and he came up with a marketing plan. He said he wanted to meet with you today, the person in charge said. Okay, let Mr. Lu settle them down, and then we can catch up on the jet lag. After that, we can get back to work as soon as possible. Lu Feng handed the suitcase in his hand to the person next to him and said, take a short rest and go over. The office area on the 4th floor is a mess except for desks and chairs. The last company didn't clean it at all when they left. Today, more than a dozen cleaners were hired to clean it up. Several employees are still getting used to the phone number here and contact the merchant for customization. Company plaque. The conference room on the 4th floor was cleared out first, but it was still a mess outside, and it didn't look like a company. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, people were coming and going on the streets of London, and the coffee shops were even more crowded. There were blonde foreigners everywhere, and a yellow person definitely stood out here. A car parked downstairs in the morning. Lu Feng opened the car door and walked out. People passing by all around focused their attention on this place. They were a little curious about what this group of foreigners were doing here. Mr. Lu, Sean, and the others have just arrived. As the person in charge spoke, he asked the little girl next to him, have you bought the coffee? The little girl held more than a dozen cups of coffee in her hand with a confused look on her face and said, I communicated with them for a long time and said that this was all the coffee they had. They didn't give it away, so I bought these. Didn't you speak English very well when you came here? The person in charge was a little angry and shouted, why can't you even communicate basically? The little girl froze there and almost cried. She spoke English that others couldn't understand, and she had to guess all their words. Okay, let's go up first. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he walked upstairs. It was normal for such a situation to occur in the team. Where can we search for so many English-speaking talents? After running, it's time to eliminate them. Going upstairs, the mess was beyond Lu Feng's imagination. Not far away, a few British aunties were cleaning up and kept saying which was enough to show that it was difficult to clean. The conference room was relatively clean. Sean found a chair and sat down. Standing next to him were two young men in their late 20s. These two people were followers of Sean. Today, the teacher would like to share some insights on how to serve foreign companies. They were consultants, but they didn't expect the scene to be such a mess, and they were very unhappy at the moment. When I tell them later, you two should listen carefully, especially in terms of corporate positioning, making different adjustments in different international markets, product positioning, and international cultural differentiation. In the future, you will guide other companies, or go to when working in an enterprise, they understand the importance of aiming at a comprehensive analysis, Sean taught. The two of them said yes respectfully and had already thought about it. After a while, the boss of the company came and wanted to stand up for the teacher. In such a chaotic environment, he actually invited him to come. It was simply disrespectful. No matter what, he had to do it. A 5-star hotel. The door of the conference room was pushed open, and Lu Feng stepped in and said to Sean with a smile, we meet again. I hope you can surprise me today. Li Ziasi hurriedly followed and translated. Just as Sean was about to speak, a man with a tall nose next to him said in English, what did you do? Let our boss wait for you in a place like this. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 997. Latest website. Lu Feng saw that Sean hadn't spoken yet, but his two subordinates spoke first. Did he invite an ancestor back? This is an office space. Of course we have to meet here. Mr. Sean, you are here to work, not to enjoy, right? Lu Feng said somewhat gloomily. Before Li Ziasi could finish the translation, another yellow-haired man next to him looked at Lu Feng with disdain. He felt that the Asian man in front of him looked about the same age as him. He probably had money in his family but little in his stomach, so he said, Xiao, who is Mr. N? He is a business mentor throughout Europe. Do you know what it means to respect people? The atmosphere at the scene was a bit stiff. The people following Lu Feng were all middle-level managers of the company. They had never encountered such a situation before, and they didn't know what to do for a while. Lu Feng said to Li Ziasi, ask him if he can do this job. He can't do it? After Li Ziasi finished speaking, Sean looked like he was just waking up from a dream. He looked at Lu Feng and smiled and said, I'm sorry, the language barrier is really inconvenient. My two assistants just said something wrong. As a young man, I hope you won't mind it too much, but I still hope that Mr. Lu will find a better place in the future. Of course there's no problem with a better place. The question is whether it's worth it to you. Let's have a meeting first. I just got off the plane today and I'm very tired now. Let's talk about the market situation here and your plan. Lu Feng pulled out a chair and sat down. Down. Sean waved his hand towards Huang Mao next to him. Huang Mao took out a folder, stared at Lu Feng and said, This is the British home appliance market survey report we did and the market plan we made together with GFN Electronics. Go on. Now the main home appliance brands in the UK market are Siemens, Beko, and Hiley. Siemens has a market share of 45%. It is definitely the market leader. Giants like Siemens have great advantages in brand recognition and market share, product quality, sales channels, and other dimensions are all GFN Electronics cannot shake. There are only two companies left, Beko and Hiley. Beko's product quality is inferior to Siemens' technical content. Their main sales are not hardware, but TV content providers. They currently have two wireless media companies, providing paid content services. Hiley Electronics' main business is the production of low-end accessories, auto parts, construction, and other industries. The home appliances it mainly sells are low-end products with low profits. Last year's financial report showed that Hiley home appliances only had a net profit of 9%, far lower than the industry. If GFN Electronics wants to compete with Hiley in terms of low prices, we think there is no chance at all. The high tariffs will become barriers, and the sales channel costs will add up, making it impossible to compete. These three companies account for 87% of the entire UK market, with the remaining 13% dominated by foreign capital. Since the birth of the European Union, internal tariff barriers among European countries have disappeared, opening up the flow of products between countries. On the contrary, tariffs have been raised on companies from FUSU and the United States, resulting in a continuous decline in the market share of the two countries in the past 2 years. This is also the original intention of the establishment of the European Union. Each of the three companies has its own merits. One has the hard power of products, the other has the soft power of exclusive content, and the other competes for the market at low prices, leaving no room for others to survive. Even if local companies and policies do not deliberately suppress GFN Electronics, it is simply a fantasy to survive. No matter how low the price is, the price will immediately go up with tariffs. After Sean had a brief understanding of the market, he also read a lot of information about GFN Electronics. When he first saw this document, he even told his staff to just write that you are not welcome in Europe. But he can't do this. Money still has to be earned, and he has to find a way to delay it as long as possible. Anyway, it will be in vain in the end. He just needs to make money. Based on the different policies of these three companies, we came up with two sets of plans for GFN Electronics. Low price is definitely not feasible, and wireless media's license is difficult to obtain, and the content provider is an exclusive monopoly, so we can only benchmark against Siemens, mainly focusing on the price space between Siemens and Beko, which is where both parties are relatively weak. Siemens takes TVs as an example. The comprehensive price is £876. The comprehensive price of Beko's TVs is £627. Hiley's TVs are only less than £400. Based on the data you provided, the cost price of GFN Electronics 3 TV sets after passing customs is £304, which is lower than the price of any other company. However, this includes dealers and sales channels. In terms of cost, advertising expenditure, etc., we estimated a price of £620, which just overlaps with the price of Beko's products. However, GFN Electronics 3 products are better in quality and size than Beko, so we believe that the comprehensive terminal retail price of the three products will be set at £736, mainly to attack the price weakness between the two companies. Department, this is a plan. Lu Feng has been listening. Their market report is very good. He has to admit that no money is wasted. This is the business boss's control of the overall market. I have a question. You just said that our comprehensive landing price is £304. The final estimated terminal cost price in the market is more than 600, Lu Feng frowned and said, this price has gone up. Double that. That's right, Our estimate is based on the comprehensive cost method. The hard profit of dealers and home appliance dealers is 20%, followed by sales channels. Now the largest electrical appliances city in the UK is Fingani. Carrefour, their approval threshold is 30% profit, as well as goods storage, turnover cycle, goods transportation, employee costs. These add up to about 25%, and the remaining 25% it's advertising, celebrity platforms, appropriate price reduction promotions, losses, etc. Sean stared at Lu Feng and replied. The threshold for joining these electrical appliance cities is so expensive, 30%? Aren't the profit margins of retail single products very low? Are Siemens products also priced at this price? Lu Feng said, dissatisfied. No. The threshold for Siemens to enter these two companies is less than 10% of the terminal profit. After all, they are a big brand, and we are a foreign brand. We rely on their channels for sales, and when signing the contract, we are expected to pay a fee, a deposit of tens of millions of pounds. The tall-nosed man next to him stared at Lu Feng and said, "These are the basic business rules in the industry, don't you understand? 10 million pounds. That's equivalent to more than 100 million yuan. I've suddenly turned my light asset into a heavy asset. This plan is unacceptable." Lu Feng's face looked very ugly. Good guy, so after all, I have to invest several hundred million first. I don't know if I can make money, but I have to spend it first. Sean looked a little ugly when he saw that Lu Feng did not accept this plan. In his opinion, this should be the safest plan. As long as it advances steadily, it is really possible for GFN Electronics to gain a foothold in the European market in the next 3 to 5 years. As long as find a living space and trade time for the market, and a daughter-in-law can always survive and become a mother-in-law. Huang Mao next to him was a little unhappy and said, "Do you know anything about business? Do you know what it means to be a poor family?" Lu Feng scolded him. "I came from a poor third-world country to a developed country to throw away money. Is there something wrong with me? You can't just study the market and competitors. We should also consider GFN's actual situation when making plans." "Then what you mean is that we create a project with no costs and only profits?" Huang Mao sneered disdainfully. "Are you kidding me? Do you understand the basic rules of business? Do you understand GFN?" Lu Feng frowned and asked, "What is the next plan?" Sean was so angry that he didn't want to speak anymore. He kept waving his hands towards Li Ziasi to tell her to stop translating. He didn't want to listen. Generally speaking, there will be two such plans, one main plan and one sub-plan, and the sub-plan is just nonsense to make up for it, so that the other party feels that the money is not wasted. The other option is the high-end route. To put it simply, it is to exceed Siemens pricing and market at high prices. I won't go into details. You can see for yourself." Huang Mao handed over the copy impatiently and leaned on the chair. "Not talking." Lu Feng looked at it twice and closed the folder and said, "Both options are not feasible. As for you, you mainly need to do a good job in the local market research report. You don't need to do other things. I can also see that, relying on your solution to make money, I will never make money in this life." This sentence directly angered Sean. As a person who has been in the European business world for most of his life, a young boy dared to say such a thing in front of him. Huang Mao and Big Nose were unhappy for a moment. They stared at Lu Feng and yelled, "Do you know what you are talking about? Do you know who is sitting in front of you? He once did international market planning for Siemens and Philips. Product line planning, global chief planning consultant of Volkswagen Group, known as the boning knife of the European business community." Lu Feng rolled his eyes when he heard this. "You told him about the front door building, and he told you about the crotch axis. He said, you said he is the European business world's boning knife, then I am the Eastern business world's machete. No need. What plan have you made?" I will do it myself and do a good job in collecting relevant information, market intelligence, and interpersonal relationships. I am very tired now. This plan is not without value. It enters the market as a third world country enterprise. The negative teaching materials from developed countries are very meaningful. Lu Feng's words simply added fuel to the fire. Huang Mao couldn't bear it anymore. He slapped the table with his hand and shouted, "This is the best plan and the most executable plan. Let me tell you, according to this, as long as the plan is implemented, this enterprise still has a glimmer of hope. If you mess around, you will definitely be dead." Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 998. Latest website. Lu Feng looked at the three of them without saying a word, stood up and walked outside. He didn't have much time to talk nonsense with these people. The main reason for inviting Sean at that time was that he was not familiar with some local conditions and needed to. He pointed it out to avoid being tricked. As for asking him to teach Lu Feng how to carry out business activities here, there is no need. When Gao Nozing and Huang Mao saw Lu Feng carrying the head, they would not leave, and their noses were almost crooked with anger. In the past 2 years, no matter which company they followed Xiao and to serve as consultants, they would always be treated with respect by the boss. Treated as guests, when they arrived at Lu Feng's place, they could not feel the slightest respect. "I'm quitting. Who can tolerate this kind of attitude?" Huang Mao smashed the folder on the table to the ground and shouted, "It's a company from the East. I don't know Sean's name. Let me tell you. No matter how many people outside ask for it, it seems like no one would come if it weren't for Kevin's relationship with Sean." Amidst Huang Mao's shouting, Lu Feng led the people out of the door and never came back. Sean took out a cigar, and the high-nosed guy next to him hurriedly took out a lighter and whispered, "Let's go, he doesn't respect people at all." Sean took a sip of his cigar and whispered, "Leave. What will I tell Kevin if I leave? Besides, the more he doesn't let us interfere, the better. Let's have a coffee and a fight every day. I made money while taking a nap, isn't it better than now? This boss is a young man, does he know what characteristics young people have?" "What characteristics?" Huang Mao asked from the side. "Is impulsive, arrogant, does not have a complete understanding of the world, and does things based on his own imagination. Don't worry, the market will teach him how to behave. When he hits the wall everywhere and has a big problem, he will come and ask me for advice in a gentle tone," Sean said confidently while puffing out cigarette smoke. Huang Mao smiled when he heard this and said, "When he begs us, it will be light to bow and drink. I'm afraid I will have to kneel down to invite you to drink." Sean glanced at Huang Mao, smoked a cigar and said, "After all, young people, what's the use of fighting for a breath? Of course, let him increase the money." Lu Feng went downstairs and saw a few aunties who were cleaning up. They were still talking about fake, and he said to the person in charge, "Find a few more people to come. Tomorrow morning we have to clean everything up and move into the office. You know, this little money will be enough, don't skimp." "Okay, I'll make arrangements right away. Mr. Lu, please go slowly." Lu Feng fell asleep in the car when he went back. It was probably 2 days before he got jet lag. When he arrived at the door, Li Ziasi gently patted Lu Feng on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Lu, we're here, go upstairs and sleep." Lu Feng woke up with a start and yawned and got out of the car. Li Ziasi hurriedly got out of the car and helped him. It was already after 4 o'clock in the afternoon when he returned to the room. Lu Feng still wanted to resist, but he couldn't bear it at all and went to sleep without washing up. London at night is like a palace of scenery. Even Shenzhen, the most developed city in the country, still looks bleak compared to here. Its neat and wide roads and the lights on various buildings are shocking. Many people woke up and stood on tall buildings looking at the city, and were instantly captured by it. Most people secretly vowed to stay here, in developed countries. Lee Ziasi looked at the scene in front of her and was dumbfounded. She came to a small place. Not to mention villages and towns, even counties and cities were completely dark at night. What were street lights? She does not know. For most Chinese people in 1995, the brightest thing at night was the moon above their heads. In many places, they still lived a life of sunrise and sunset. If Lee Ziasi wants to stay here, she will never allow her future nights to be dark. The arrival of GFN Electronics has attracted the attention of many companies. Only Beko responded, launching some indescribable movies on its own TV channel at midnight. Neither Hailey nor Siemens have any worries about GFN's arrival. Even companies like Sony and Panasonic have to stay here, let alone a small Eastern company. But what Siemens didn't expect was that people from Goldman Sachs contacted Siemens, hoping to launch efforts against GFN Electronics in the French market. In the CEO's office, Herman looked at the handed-in folder in front of him with a confused look on his face. He raised his head and looked at his chief secretary and asked, "Are you sure the executives from Goldman Sachs Group are calling? Let us encircle GFN Electronics? Such a company that currently does not have any business in the European market." "That's what the person named Eisen on the other end of the phone did say," the secretary replied, "and several companies in Fuzhou can make certain concessions and conduct discussions in the field of communications, especially in the 2G signal network. This is not a benefit, right? Our technology is not much weaker than theirs." What is the origin of GFN Electronics? Herman really couldn't figure it out. This thing is as ridiculous as a boxing champion telling another boxing champion to beat up a sick man, so why wait? A gust of wind blew, and he might have died of a bad cold. Herman also tried to make some efforts to build a good relationship with Wall Street. After all, it was not a big deal. The key problem was that he wanted to get GFN Electronics, but he couldn't do it at all. Not to mention that GFN had no business at all. Even if there is business, Siemens and GFN are not close to each other. You can't lower Siemens's brand and start a price war with GFN just to win over GFN, right? Sometimes when a company is too weak, it's easy to make people feel helpless, right? Herman raised his head and looked at his secretary. "Yes, President," the secretary thought for a while and said, "but I am still very interested in exchanging technology with companies such as Sony and Panasonic. They just said to encircle and suppress them, but did not say how to encircle and suppress them. In my opinion, let the subordinates," some media scolded him, "but didn't he also fulfill their requirements? I have another worry, that is, what if I do it and they don't agree to exchange technology with us?" Herman asked. "Then change from scolding GFN Electronics to scolding them." Herman said with a smile on his face, "Then we ask GFN for money. When have we ever lost?" The two looked at each other and smiled, and the matter was settled. 2 days passed by in a flash. The British business community did not feel the arrival of GFN at all. However, Lu Feng and the others were extremely busy. The office area had been cleared, and everyone officially went to work. Various departments were set up, and it started to look like a company. Because Li Ziasi was a bilingual translator, she was assigned to work as a secretary next to Lu Feng. Lu Feng also communicated with several local dealers on the phone. The threshold for cooperation was too high. Opening his mouth was 40% profit, and what kind of publicity must be specified in the contract, otherwise they will not do it. In the office, Lu Feng looked through the information handed over by Sean. The market in this country has been completely occupied, leaving no chance for anyone. Everyone is working hard to export. There was a knock on the office door, and Li Ziasi walked in, put a folder on the table and said, "Mr. Lu, This is the personnel application from the Human Resources Department. The main employees are local basic jobs such as security guards and drivers. Lu Feng opened it and took a look, then threw it aside and said in a deep voice, "Tell the HR department not to throw such trivial matters in front of my eyes in the future. What are they doing? Everyone has nothing to do." Today the finance department went to the warehouse to order goods. There is no real business now, so everyone is just sitting around. Going downstairs to buy some coffee or something, but the coffee downstairs is so expensive. Li Ziasi was like he entered a new world and was curious about everything. He said to Lu Feng, "A cup of coffee costs 30 yuan when converted into RMB." Lu Feng knew that he had to take action. If this situation continued, staff slack would not be a problem at all. The most important thing was that the last page of the information submitted by Sean had his own words, wishing Mr. Lu great success. Flexing their muscles, stepping on Beko, and punching Siemens, making the whole of Europe look at it like the rising sun in the east. These words were sarcastic. If Lu Feng didn't show it, he was afraid that the old boy would wake up from his sleep. No matter where you go, you must start from the basics. No matter what culture or background, as long as you are human, there are commonalities. Therefore, our big move starts today. Lu Feng said to Li Ziasi, "Notify everyone, people, have a meeting." Li Ziasi felt that Mr. Lu's big move was really coming, and he was afraid that it would be something earth-shattering, so he hurriedly turned around and called for someone. Half an hour later, hundreds of people gathered in the conference room, and it was packed. Lu Feng found a chair, stood on the chair and said to everyone, "I told you when we set off, this trip it's about fighting. I heard the opinions of local business consultants yesterday, but I believe GFN Electronics has its own way to find a different path. Because of the European routines, these people are better at playing tricks than me, so we can't follow their routines. We don't want dealers, we don't go into big supermarkets, and we don't invite celebrities to advertise. We have to go into battle lightly and use our mouths to let people, the British people, believe in our love, and we do direct sales," Lu Feng said loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone applauded, and one man among them muttered in a low voice, "It's still direct sales. Are there any direct sales in this country? So what should we do first to do direct selling? First of all, today a group of people will make flyers, a group of people will buy eggs, a group of people will go to the vegetable market where the elderly gather, and then find a cheap star hotel. I will give a lecture." Lu Feng said to the people in charge in the front row, "When it comes to financial management, you cannot rely on your children when you are old. You must rely on yourself for investment and financial management. Do you understand? We'll do it in a minute. Now the departments have begun to divide their work, and I will personally handle every link. This is our first battle, and we must fight it beautifully," Lu Feng shouted. "Calm, baby." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 999. Latest website. No one knows what Lu Feng is going to do, and no one has used this model before. It will be a completely new approach. It is not used in China because Lu Feng feels it is too sinister. Now that he is already abroad, he can focus on money and let go. The entire company is busy. The sales department is responsible for making sample flyers, the marketing department is responsible for finding target groups and booking hotels, and the purchasing department is responsible for buying eggs and other gifts. Lu Feng returned to the state of his entrepreneurial days, running from department to department and teaching things step by step. In the marketing department, about 20 people were sitting at their workstations. Lu Feng stood at the front and said to everyone, "I'm going to have a simple meeting for everyone. From today on, I am the president and don't care about the group headquarters. None of this mess has anything to do with this place, do you understand? Clear? When publicizing to the outside world, we exaggerate. You are self-made at the age of 23, a multimillionaire at the age of 24, and a billionaire at the age of 25. You ask the group headquarters for some preserved photos, and go to Wall Street to talk to those big names. We made a collection of photos of him and some important media reports. Today the marketing department has another task. First, go to the market to find out what the local elderly people like Lu Feng ordered. Then it's time to rent a car. Remember, we only rent expensive ones, such as Bentleys and Rolls-Royces. Just rent them when you need them. Don't worry about money in this regard. The scene should be big. Then we will customize a suit and sunglasses for everyone. For the time being, that's all. The department manager distributes the tasks. The marketing department started to get busy. If these things were just trivial matters in China, they were enough to keep us busy for 2 days. Yesterday, a young man went out to take a taxi and was raped. It was useless to call the police, so he just paid. After leaving the marketing department, Lu Feng went to the human resources department, looked at the 7 or 8 people in front of him, and said, "Everyone will stop what they are doing and talk about a few things. Now we have taken root here and will start business soon. These two, there are a lot of people who get tricked because you are not familiar with the place, so you have to recruit some local people. When you have local people going out to do business, it will be easier for people to trust you. We are having interviews today. As long as the salary is high, there will be more people," said the HR manager. "It can't be too high," Lu Feng said hurriedly. "Okay." After leaving the human resources department, we went downstairs to the sales department. 7 or 8 people were studying the leaflet with their heads on their heads. How to design the leaflet was a big issue, and they were still arguing about what should be highlighted. Since we want to attract people, we must work hard on prizes so that people will come. No, we should put Mr. Lu on it and focus on publicity. Successful people will come only if we give them gifts. Since we are giving gifts, we should spend money to let them see what we want them to see. I think these are too fancy. We should look for some local elements, otherwise it will be very abrupt and we can't do things with domestic thinking." A group of people were chattering and arguing, but no one could convince anyone. "What's the noise about?" Lu Feng stepped forward and asked. The manager of the business department is a man in his 30s. He previously served as a middle-level manager in the overseas business department and was mainly responsible for overseas business docking. When he saw Lu Feng coming, he stood up straight and said, "Mr. Lu, we are discussing the design of the flyer. Everyone has a lot of opinions, and this matter is quite important, so we can't argue about it for a while." "Can't you even design a flyer?" Lu Feng looked at everyone with a frown. "Most of these people are from the Talent Reserve Center and have never really worked. In addition, they are top students. They are all very arrogant and feel that they have enough understanding of overseas countries. In terms of design, he always wanted to create something high-end and cater to the overseas developed countries he learned about from books." Lu Feng simply listened to their ideas and he was like a modern Zhao Kuo. Lu Feng picked up some draft paper on the table, looked through it twice, looked at everyone and asked, "What do you think is the difference between old ladies in England and old ladies in China?" A young man in his 20s said, "The economy here is more developed, the social sciences are better, and the life is richer. The elderly sunbathe and go to the beach, while the poorer people travel on a budget." Lu Feng squinted his eyes and looked at these people. They seemed to be willing to believe in all these things, such as freedom, the sea, and art. "Have you seen her before? Or have you dated the old lady here?" Lu Feng asked, staring at the man. Everyone laughed. "I tell you, the differences between human beings are very small. There is no difference between old ladies abroad and old ladies in China. Rich old ladies in China play no less than young people. They are just rich but not rich. Our goal." "She's a poor old lady," Lu Feng said with a dark face, "a poor old lady, If you talk nonsense about freedom and art to her, don't you think it's nonsense? Mr. Lu, what I mean is that we should look as good looking as possible and be close to other people's culture so that we can integrate better, a tall man next to him said. Don't talk to me about culture. Get rid of that arrogance in your bones. I'm here to make money, not culture. A poor old lady, no matter how educated she is not as good as two tails of beef. You have to know who you are facing. You are standing in the vegetable market, not in the Vienna Golden Hall, Lu Feng scolded him. The man stopped talking, but judging from his face, he was very unconvinced by what Lu Feng said. He shut up now entirely because of his identity. No one present said anything, and Lu Feng could feel that everyone did not accept the matter of foreign countries. Instead, they stood in a condescending manner and wanted to connect with foreign high-end people. You must correct your attitude. Don't wander around the company. This is the business center. It must be high-end. I can't handle such a leaflet. I really didn't expect it. Lu Feng glanced at the crowd and said, everyone. He is a top student, but doing something like this would be an undermining of his talents. That's fine, I'll do it and you guys will execute it. I won't compromise on my talents. What are the three elements of advertising? Lu Feng looked at the crowd and paused for more than 10 seconds, then said, simplicity, communication, and product. Simplicity makes it easier to spread, and widespread allows more people to understand the product, so it must be simple and focus on the key points. A piece of A4 paper is as big as a piece of paper. How much information do you think people can absorb at a casual glance on the roadside? It will be a little more complicated. The background color is blue, mainly eye-catching, and the content should be small, just 3 lines of words, time, where and what to do. The time is this weekend, and the location is a 5-star hotel. What are you doing? Give out free gifts. This line must be large. Even if he holds such a flyer and throws it away, he will remember it in his mind in an instant. According to what I said, let's do it. Lu Feng saw them all shaking their heads. It's not going to work like this. He said in a deep voice, it's such a simple thing, just do it when you have time. You can follow the marketing department to investigate and go out for a walk. Lu Feng spent a whole day in contact with these young people and found that most of them had high ambitions and low abilities. They came from poverty, but they had an almost demonic understanding of wealth. If farmers think that the emperor should use gold hose to work, then these people's understanding of ordinary people in developed countries is that these people eat gold with knives and forks. Most of the people in the company were driven to the vegetable market by Lu Feng to conduct relevant investigations. Lu Feng couldn't stay idle and followed them. On the bus, a tall man grabbed the armrest with his hand and said, Manager Li, is this why we traveled all this way? Then what do you want to do? No more salary, Manager Li said angrily. You can do whatever you are asked to do, and you can leave only if you feel uncomfortable. The little girl next to me gossiped, I heard from people at the group headquarters that we were exiled. President Lu was sidelined during the internal fight within the group, so he was driven here to work. There is no budget, and there is nothing oily. The tall man snorted and rolled his eyes and said, at his level, what ability can he have? Let me tell you, he has just caught up with the good times. If we go forward 5 or 6 years, there will be gold everywhere in the country. What are you talking about? Who is to blame? If you want to blame, just blame your parents for not knowing each other earlier, Manager Li said angrily. Don't say a few words. Mr. Lu is the founder of the company. Now he is personally responsible for arresting this person Chance. When I wasn't at work, my senior told me that the boss's brain was all mush. I didn't believe it before, but I believe it now, the little girl next to me sighed. Everyone was silent. They wholeheartedly disagreed with the plan proposed by Lu Feng, but who let him be the boss? Everyone looked like their talents had been submerged and they were in power. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sean came with yellow hair and a high nose. He didn't actually come, he just wanted to see how the company was doing. Besides the solution he provided, what else could he do? Sean hadn't had a good rest for 2 days in a row. He couldn't figure out what Lu Feng's reason was for rejecting his plan. When I arrived at the company, I found that most of the people were not there. The Human Resources Department was interviewing several new employees. My English was very broken, and I made several grammatical mistakes. "Where's your boss?" Gao Naji knocked on the door and asked the person inside. "Going out to do research." Gao Naji turned around and translated with Sean. "Ask her why she went out to investigate," Sean asked. "Research the old lady." The tall nose bridge and the yellow hair were both dumbfounded. "Where are these things? Researching old ladies?" Sean was confused after hearing this. He didn't know what this had to do with home appliances. Is it possible that Lu Feng wants to target the crowd? Are you starting to advertise electrical appliances for the elderly to the outside world? Latest website.